Hello, I'm Carl Alston from the Leukemia Research Foundation. Welcome to our Blood Cancer Awareness Month live stream conversation with Dr. Giovanni Roti, MD, PhD, who is from the Department of Medicine and Surgery at the University of Parma in Parma, Italy. Hello, Dr. Roti, how are you?
Hi, good morning.
You received a research grant from the Leukemia Research Foundation this year, so congratulations to you on that.
Thanks.
And let's see, we are funding a research project of yours titled Targeting Notch1 Trafficking Vulnerabilities in T-Cell Acute Lymphoblastic Leukemia. So can you tell everybody kind of what that means for one, and tell us about the project and what you're hoping to learn from it?
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much for having me today. And our project, the project that has been funded, focus on Notch1, that is an oncogene, that is the most frequent gene in a subtype of leukemia, a leukemia subtype that is particularly frequent in children. And in the past, several studies pointed to the role of this oncogene in the development and progression of this type of cancer. But from the therapeutic perspective, the effort came really short. There have been a couple of ideas to inhibit this signaling that failed in the clinical trial stage. So we took a different approach in the past, and we discovered that targeting the trafficking of this protein is an alternative to current modality to inhibit this Notch gene. Basically, what we want to do is to block Notch across cellular spaces, such as the cytoplasm and the surface of the cell. This is an innovative approach because usually we target an enzyme, we target a receptor expressed on the surface. Here, what we want to try to do is to block Notch in its trafficking step across the cell. And to do so, we did a large screening, such as testing millions of small molecules, and we identified a couple of them that are very promising, and they do the job. They do the job in cellular in vitro model, but also in vivo model, such as xenograft. And the hope for this new project is to take these preliminary studies that we've done in our laboratory to the next level, such as providing new information to prove that this can be translated actually in a therapy for children and adults affected by this disease. So, the innovation is because Notch is a protein, but also is a difficult protein to target because it's a transcription factor. And usually transcription factors are not amenable for pharmaceutical inhibition, pharmacological inhibition. And so the idea of targeting its trafficking can be a way that in other situations can be applied, and also is something that we want to learn from this project. So we really hope to take this innovation to the level of translation. That is probably the most difficult part especially for pediatric leukemia. Working in vitro and then take innovation to the next level for the benefit of children affected by this disease.
So it sounds like, if you are successful with this project, you will be able to identify the proteins a little bit early and act with the proteins early so that when these cancer cells, try to multiply, they won't be able to. So it's sort of like, a person who may be diagnosed, you'll be able to get in right away and stop the progression of the disease before it even gets going if this research project gets to the conclusion that you're looking for. Is that kind of right?
Yes. So basically, because Notch is a very strong oncogene, we are expecting that by inhibiting this oncogene, we will be able to achieve either a remission of the leukemia or impeding their progression. That is the best scenario we hope for. But also we know that usually one molecule is insufficient to eradicate leukemia. This is the history of chemotherapy. And so one of the actually aim of this project funded by LRF is to do a synergy study to try to identify the molecule that act together with our mechanism to really find multiple mechanisms to block this pathway in such a way that leukemia eventually will not occur in the time being. So that is the best scenario we are striving and we are studying.
Okay. So if you achieve what you plan to, how will this fit into the entire world of blood cancer science? Does the natural progression all the way to the end, whatever that end is, mean a new treatment, or does it mean probably a new medication for people who have ALL? What is it? How does it move forward?
So this is a very interesting question because we started with the idea to focus on pediatric ALL, that is a rare disease, but actually Notch is among the most frequently mutated gene in a hematopoietic malignancy, such as also chronic lymphocytic leukemia, some subtype of lymphoma. And so if we identify, as we hope, a mechanism to target this signaling, we can apply this idea and this approach to many different cancers. And so we in part already did, and preliminary studies in models that are mutated for Notch with a strong Notch signaling, but they are different from leukemia. In this case, we are studying also some type of lymphoma. They respond to our approach. And so we hope to extend as much as possible this idea of targeting a Notch trafficking in many different cancers dependent on aberrant Notch signaling.
Well, that's great. If you find success with this project, you could impact not only leukemia but lymphoma and other blood cancers, because it's sort of a thing that is common to all of those. So that's awesome. That's fantastic.
Disease, and there are differences, of course, that are histotypic dependent, but we hope that this basic mechanism that we identified, such as blocking this protein that acts on the Notch signaling, it seems conserved also across different model, different diseases. So we really hope to, extend our studies beyond ALL.
Great. So how does the funding from the Leukemia Research Foundation help you not only with this project, but with your career in general, especially working in Europe?
This is the grant we obtained from Leukemia Research Foundation is amazing for us because first, it's very difficult to have funding at this stage of the career. So once I started my group 3 years ago, and it's a group that is funded from a relocation from the United States. I've been trained in Boston at Dana-Farber Cancer Institute for many years. Then I moved back my family and my ideas. And so, to support ideas, you need fundings. And fundings in Europe generally are not as extended, like there are not so many opportunity as in the United States, and especially in Italy, where we have only few calls where we can apply each year. So the idea of applying to international foundations such as LRF is critical, because we can, extend our idea not only to Italian research foundation, but also from US and global foundation. And also because it supports young investigators, such as a postdoc, such as a PhD student. And this is critical for especially a country, as I said, like Italy. There are not so many opportunities for this, for training. And so we can, support the young investigator to achieve their goal in their career. And this is very critical, because we need to form and teach the next scientists, the future scientists, people that will certainly will do better than me, for sure. And this grant, I also think that this grant are really the example that with the hard work you can achieve success, and success means transferring to younger generation.
Well, I sure hope that this project is successful, and I sure hope that the funding that you got from the Leukemia Research Foundation will move you along in your career, as well as move a little bit along to finding at least better treatments and better, regimens, better medications, and eventually a cure for blood cancers. That would be, the best thing ever. So congratulations again to you for getting the funding from the Leukemia Research Foundation. So tell me, how did you become interested in science as a career?
Oh, that is a difficult question, because I grew up in a small city where only two high schools were basically available, one with the classic study and the other one with the scientific studies. So I chose the one with the path in science. So that was the first choice that brought me to, studying deep in my study on scientific path. And then I enrolled in a medical school here in Parma. And when I was in Parma, I had the opportunity to apply to one of the first European fellowship. It's called Erasmus. And it was the very first opportunity for MD students to train in different academic environment. So I spent a year of my medical school in France, in Lyon, in a very prestigious university. And I started my rotation in the Department of Hematology, basically studying blood cancer disease. So I was a visiting fellow, but I fell in love with this studying blood cancer. So when I came back after a year, all what I did was basically staying in the lab with my mentor here in Parma. And then I moved in my fellowship program, my clinical fellowship program in Perugia. That Perugia is a big center in Italy for haploidentical transplantation. And I did my training, but my director always said that I wanted to go back in the lab. So after clinical time, after my clinical time, I was always going back to the lab. And so that's what I basically did. As I grew up in an environment, very rich scientific environment that gave me the opportunity at the end of my clinical training to fly away in US and spend my PhD and my postdoctoral fellowship in Boston. So it was really a very straightforward path. I did not probably thought about too much at the time. Is what I love to do, and I was fortunate compared to many other people to do so. And I put every step to achieve this goal. Basically, that's what happened in my case.
That's great. I'm glad that, well, it looks like you made the right decision, or your parents helped you make the right decision to go into the high school that focused on science, and then you kind of just followed that track, right on up to, different city, a larger city, I guess, in Italy. You ended up over in the US for a little while, for about 10 years, or a little more than 10 years, right?
10 years was
10 years,
yeah.
Right. And then now you're back in Italy, doing your thing for the good of everyone in blood cancer science. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
What would you say is the most challenging part of your day? Do you see patients as well as do research?
Yes, I have also a clinical component of my job. I do see patients, is a fraction of obviously for my work. And also I teach. The Italian academic system require for people in the academic track to do the three things together, basically. Mm-hmm. And the most difficult part is that in like a clinical activity is probably sometimes that you are impatient, basically because you have the perspective of basic science, and so you have the idea that you can do technically more. You can do these things, and these things because you can do in the lab, but in reality, translating all this idea that you have in vitro model or preclinical model is not sometimes feasible in the clinics. So sometimes this is probably the most difficult and frustrating part, such as like waiting for the steps that are required to taking your experiment done in a lab to the next level, as the next level needs to be as safe as possible, as everyone knows that the requirement of clinical trial. But that for a basic scientist is a little bit frustrating, because you probably want to accelerate a little bit the process and accelerate the steps required to do the best for your patient that needed now, not 3 years from now. Mm-hmm. Because you have a basic science experience, you really understand that even if you achieve a very good result in your clinical model, will require a lot of time to benefit the patient you are seeing the same morning in the clinic.
Right. Yeah, I can totally understand that. Having the perspective of here is this exciting science that is going on that I'm pretty sure will be able to help you. But then you are sitting directly across from a patient who, needs help now, who wants help now, might be in an acute phase rather than a chronic phase. And here it's sort of like, I just know that this is going to work, but I can't bring this to you yet because it's not approved and it's not ready. This is not a clinical trial. This is just, an idea or at a certain point in the lab. So I can certainly see that from, being difficult from your end and, from the patient's end, because I'm sure a patient who comes to see you knows that you are deep into the research for this, and it's probably one of the reasons they are happy to have you as a clinician. So anyhow, very interesting. I wonder, with the whole COVID-19 pandemic thing going on, has that impacted your work there?
Yes, it did. Actually, did a lot. I mean, Parma was one of the cities in northern Italy that has been struck by the COVID-19 very, very hard, actually. And so the city, that is a small city, needed to adjust to this crisis. So all the services have been reshaped to adjust for the COVID-19, to admit more patients. And so for, protecting ourselves and protecting the other, also the lab basically shut down for a period of time. So we established a sort of rotation, because what we want really not to try to do is to stop everything. So we needed at least to have our models that are cell line model with engineered model to keep going, because then going back and redo everything, it takes a lot of time. So, and it's difficult. You have the sense that you're wasting your time because you're waiting for, everything reopen, everything going back to the normal, and probably the normal will not come back soon. So we adjusted. We had, and thanks especially for the people in the lab, we have like a rotation, people that continue to take a sample from the clinic, store the sample, and keep the experiment at the minimum ongoing. So I think we also learn a lot of as a group, especially as a group. Seeing people coming despite regulation, despite we needed to do, and we actually doing, tell a lot about people that are doing this work, because they believe that really basic science and science in general can make the difference. So nothing is really able to stop us, despite a lot of things, despite the risk, despite that someone has to say, "Oh no, you cannot come." It's the lab. There are things that need to keep going, and there are samples from patients from the clinic that needed to be stored in the frozen tank. So someone needed to do the job, and so I was amazed by my group that continued to come and continue to work despite this difficult time.
Yeah.
Traveling was difficult. I've been stopped by police many times because you technically are not allowed to travel. So I said a lot of time, I'm a doctor, I need to go to the hospital. So it was fine, but it's not something that is normal. And so, expressing that, you need to go because you have things important that need to be achieved and need to be done. It was difficult, but also taught us a lot about my group and the people that are working in my group, and I think they expressed their best in that time.
Yeah, I think that's pretty reassuring that people in the lab who understand that kind of science must continue. Of course, you've got to do whatever you can to keep things moving forward. It may not have been as fast as you wanted, but certainly had to keep it moving forward because, this is life-saving work that you're doing. And besides, of course, you being a doctor and needing to see patients, to the extent that you can during, when you were shut down. But now things are a little bit better, at least in Italy.
Yeah, they're better. We are in full time right now, so we hope to continue in this way. They are definitely better.
Yeah. Do you? You have a family, you have children, etc., right?
Yeah, I have 2 kids, 1 boy and 1 girl. Yeah.
Uh-huh. How do you achieve that elusive work-life balance when you're trying to be a parent and a doctor, a medical doctor, and a researcher? How do you figure out how to balance all of that?
It's crazy difficult. Elusive is the right word, probably. I try as much as I can when I go back to spend the time with them, and I'm not very good at it. I need to say it because probably it's true. I mean, the brain is continuously spinning, and they know that. I think my kids realize that there are times that they need to work also at home. And so what we strategize sometimes is they work with me. So we took near my desk, and so they do their homework next to me, and they continue to apply to a grant or writing something or checking things that I did not finish during the day. Mm-hmm. And so that is our compromise. But I feel, and when I have time, I try to spend time with them. We go bike sometimes. We do little things. I'm not a very sporty person, but I try to be there as much as I can. I mean, it's probably as many other scientists and many other doctors, the time that we spend is with our family is a little fraction, and so it's difficult, it's challenging.
Sure.
There is no other probably
Yeah.
good answer to that. I mean,
Well, no, there is. I think that I think what is true for you is probably true for everybody else who has a career and has a family and trying to figure out how to give your best to both, both entities. Sometimes it is hard, but it's good that you are, realizing that, and it's good that your family realizes that and that you're able to work together. So
yeah, of
that
course.
is the way to do it.
Yeah. And
Consider.
obviously with a wife that keeps every of us together because she's doing the hard work for the family, to try to fix where I'm not there, and keeping kids all the time happy, even if sometimes I'm not there. I mean, it's a family. We are, there is compromise, but it's working out.
Right. You have, there is a comment someone has made that says, God bless you in your research.
Okay.
So there are people out there who are paying attention. So considering what you told me a little while ago, I guess the next question, I don't know if you'll have an answer to the last question, which is, if the whole science and medical thing did not work out, what would your fallback position have been? If you couldn't have been a scientist and doctor, what would you have done?
When probably in the art business.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like contemporary art. I don't know. It's something that I always like it, and I see pattern in contemporary art, and I see some sort of scientific things in the business of art. So I think it's that something it didn't work out. I would probably go in economics, working with numbers, working with trades. I like it. It's a different type of science, but I think they are science, and I like the contemporary art part. So I think it's something that will be completely different from what I'm doing right now. And so I don't know. It's something that I would probably have tried at some point.
Do you find that you have any time to sort of pursue that passion a little bit in that 1 minute of free time you have every month?
Sometimes we especially we go to museum, we go to contemporary art events or something like that. We try to keep up to date with things that are around our city, and especially also when we were in the United States, that New York is probably one of the best places to cultivate this passion. And yes, it's something that as a family also, because we are taking kids to museum and stuff, we try to do sometimes.
Yeah, no, I understand that. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Roti, from the Department of Medicine and Surgery at the University of Parma in Parma, Italy. September, of course, is Blood Cancer Awareness Month, and we have a couple of virtual patient education programs that are coming up. Wednesday, September 30th, from 7:30 until 9 p.m., we're going to be talking about aggressive non-Hodgkin's lymphoma and CAR T-cell therapy and other immunotherapies. And then 2 weeks after that, on October 14th, we will talk about myelodysplastic syndromes, that's MDS, and acute myeloid leukemia. So please stay tuned to those. If you go to allbloodcancers.org and look for the virtual programs link at the top. In fact, if you look in your comment section right now, I'm going to put the link in there for you to be able to register for that, for those programs, for the patient education programs that are coming up. It's also Blood Cancer Awareness Month, like I mentioned, and there's an opportunity for you to help us out while we try to spread the word about blood cancers and the important work that Leukemia Research Foundation is doing not only to fund research and fund innovative researchers like Dr. Roti so that we can find better treatments, better medications, and a cure for all blood cancers, we also do these patient education programs to help patients right now who are in need of information and support. So please visit allbloodcancers.org. Look for our Blood Cancer Awareness Month link at the top of the page, and you can give us a hand there. And if it's at all possible, please donate to the Leukemia Research Foundation so that we can continue our important work. So thank you very much for paying attention today. Again, I'm Carl Alston with the Leukemia Research Foundation, and we will see you again next time.